Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome to another plugin knowledge session. This session, we're going to continue with our iZotope Ozone 8 series, but this one we're going to take it out of the DAW and we're going to run Ozone 8 standalone. So what you may not be aware of is that, at least in the advanced version I've got, I can't remember in the other version, but check it out anyway to find out if you can actually run it standalone and you can master your songs just within Ozone 8 by itself. You don't even need a DAW. You can just get rid of your DAW altogether and run Ozone 8 to do all of your mastering or mastering of clients' work. So it has all of the features that comes with Ozone 8, load modules to all of the features. So we'll just do a overview of showing that. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all the modules. Please go back and look at the other videos in the series to check out each of the modules. But what I want to show you is what is different with this one in standalone mode, what you could do in standalone mode and how it differs from loading it within a DAW. So if you're someone that would like to master your songs outside of a DAW and you solely want to use Ozone 8, then this is the one to check out. So let's get into it and check it out. All right, so here we go. I have loaded the standalone version of iZotope Ozone 8, and this is what it looks like as it comes up in its default setting. Now you can see it looks very similar to the version that comes up in a DAW. So all of this below this line is pretty much identical. You've got all the same features over here that we've run through, bypasses, you've got levels, you've got all of your modules here that you can load. So you can load any sort of modules that you like from the Ozone 8 section, or you can obviously see what they have there. And you got all the same features. You can move them around, you can bypass, you can add, remove, all your settings the same. So we're not really going to talk about this because this is obviously the same process. So when you load a song into this, you're going to do this stuff here to master it. So what is different about the standalone version is all of this section up the top here. So we have our standard thing here, Master Assistant, we have our presets, but we have some transport controls now. So we can play, stop, pause, fast forward. We've got a loop function. We've got a little timer here, etc., and some undo functions. And you'll see some controls up here on the menus. So create a new project, open a project. So you can save projects. So, you can work on an entire album directly in Ozone 8 and save it. Then you can bounce things out, etc. So we can't obviously export at the moment because we've got no audio in, but we can import audio files as well. And we can set up our audio devices and preferences, that sort of stuff. So we've got lots of options and settings here that we can use. All right, so the first step you're going to want to do if you're doing a mastering session in here is to import some audio files. So obviously if you're working on a single track, you're going to import that. If you're working on an entire album, you would import that. So I'm going to import one file here. Okay, so we've imported one file here and you'll see that it's come up here. See that the name's there. Here's your audio wave file and it's done some sections here. Now, the sections here are pretty similar to what it did when we used the referencing, the reference tool here, in that it detected sections that it believed would be similar, could be looped, and changes in parts. So it's attempting to, say, in this instance, trying to detect an intro, a verse, a chorus, another verse, another chorus, maybe a bridge, and then a very long outro. Now, we can obviously keep importing more files. So we can import another one, and you'll see here now we've got track 2. So the manual states you can import up to 16 audio files. So as long as you don't want to master more than 16 audio files at once, you should be right. But generally not many albums are going to go above that unless it's a double album. But anyway, so I'm just going to start with 2. And you can see that it's obviously done this little detection of the spaces there. Now, once we master our songs, then we can export them out. We can pick some settings here like enable dither, because at the moment I've got it disabled. If I had it on, it would probably be automatically set. We can set our sample rate, our bit depth, set our path, our file type. So if we want to do a compressed version, we can set our bit rate there, obviously name it. And that's set to current track, or you could set all tracks, and you've got some other options here. So you can tick add track numbers, which will obviously automatically apply a 1 and a 2 to the start of the tracks. We can append some text to this. So it's showing you an example here, but if I wrote test, you'll see that it's added test to the end of the file there. And you can obviously say before or after if you wanted to append text to it, or you just leave it as the name you have it in there. And then you just click OK, and it will bounce out your tracks and master them for you. So once we've got it loaded in here, we can obviously remove the track if we want. We can keep adding. So even though we've got the option up here, we can also click the plus button there to add some more as well. Okay, so we've got obviously our transport buttons. So we can play. Just turn that down a bit. We can stop. We can rewind. We can fast forward, which actually jumps to the next song. But we can also click on sections if we want to loop something. And you'll see that loop automatically turned on when I click there, and turns off if I click in a field. And the output settings seem to be per song. Now I can also quickly skip between songs without stopping playback. Now you could also create your own manual loop, so you can draw in there quite simply and it will create a loop. So if I did a nice little short one, you can see the loop working there nicely. And we've obviously got our little display up here as I stated. So, we've got our track number, we've got our time that we're sitting at, we've got our total time for the entire album. So that's the 2 songs added together. Now, obviously this is supposed to be working as if you are mastering a album. So if, for instance, you're working on this and you go, I want to change the order, you can drag the tracks around and then the track numbers will automatically be changed. So if you've got 16 tracks, you can move them around as you so choose. And that's the simpleness of it. So basically, you just come in here with your songs, load them all up, your entire album, whatever, and you just start mastering it. So you're going to add your plugins as you choose. Set your limiter, turn the dither on. You can still use your references. You can check out the codecs if you want to hear what it's going to sound like. set some dynamics. Bit of EQ. And then you can switch between songs. Make sure your levels are right, make sure everything's good, and your EQ balance is right between all the songs. And then, as I said, you can bounce it out. You've also got your master assistant here, so you can use that. So anything that I've showed you pretty much in every other video in the Ozone 8 series, you can do in this standalone version. Okay, some of the reasons that I wouldn't use this personally for me is because it's missing a few features. One is that it doesn't allow you to set the ID tags, the metadata, the CD text. It doesn't allow you to burn it to a CD if you wanted to. It doesn't allow you to create DDP files if that's what you wanted to create. So while it's very powerful in what it can do, it is missing some things that I would do in a proper mastering session. But that's for me working with clients. This may be perfect for you. You may not want to use those features, or you may have another program to do that in afterwards. So if you have a separate standalone application that can create DDP files and set metadata and all that sort of stuff, then you might decide to use that instead alongside with this. So you do your mastering session here, bounce all the files out, then bring them into your other application and set the metadata, ID3 tags, etc., and then create DDP files from that, or whatever you want to do, burn CDs. So a couple of other features on here that I haven't mentioned yet is you'll see up here in the waveform, we've got a couple of settings over here on the ends. So this is obviously great for this bottom one here, trimming. So if you got a lot of silence on the start or end of your track, you can obviously trim it. Now, I'm using a mouse scroll at the moment, which you can see is zooming in. And we've got one of those on each side. So if we wanted to trim the end off, we can do that as well. But the other setting you've got here is you've got a fade. So we can set a fade there. We can actually right click on it and change the style. So if we wanted to do a fade like that, we can. And as I said, we can trim it. And we could actually zoom in to get really nice and close to see what we're doing there, which is obviously a key component to mastering as well, is just making sure that we trim the start and end of the songs, and also make sure that our fades are correct. If we want them to, we can do a fade on the start as well. And again, we can change the type. So different types there. And we can obviously do that on every single song, as you would in any mastering type session there. So I think it's a great feature. If they just added a couple of extra features, I think it would be fantastic. Now, one other thing that can be quite useful is you might say, okay, but I want to run some third-party plugins. Now, you can actually do that. I find it a little bit tricky in what plugins it actually supports. So if we go to add a module and we go across to the plugins section here, you'll see I've got nothing here at the moment. I can click on configure and we've got some options here, but I'm going to remove that at the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add my correct location. And I'm going to start with VST3s. And I'm going to scan the plugin folder now. So as with any system that's going to scan for plugins, it's going to take a while. unless it's improved from previous times, I've found that it doesn't find a lot of plugins. So its support for the plugins is not great. So you'll see there, it doesn't seem to support VST3s. And that's sort of a problem for me because I generally run or like to run pretty much all VST3s if they're available. I do have VST2s as well, but I generally don't want to run them if I can get VST3 versions. And I don't generally like to have both versions in my system, which can cause a problem if I wanted to use a system like this that wants VST2s, but in Cubase it supports VST3s, because I will by default not install a VST2 because I want to make sure I'm using the best version every time in Cubase. Okay, so once it's finished scanning, then you can come across here and you'll see a whole heap of plugins appearing now. Obviously, we've got some iZotope ones. That's interesting, you know, and we've got some other things. So, for instance, here, if I wanted to load a little microshift, suddenly it pops up, okay? And it should work on our mix. So if I play the mix here, right, you can hear I'm destroying it right now with little microshift. Probably not the best choice of plugins there, but let's find something else. So let's go with a little plate. Okay, so you might want to add some plate to this song. Let's make it a little bit thinner. And then we'll wind our mix down so that's dry. Okay, so obviously some bad examples there, but you get the point where we've got lots of options. But if you knew my plugin list, you'd know that there's tons and tons of plugins missing here because, as I said, I like to use VST3s on most of my stuff, and this doesn't have it. But, you know, you can load whatever you want. If you want to have a nice meter, we can do that. So you can see there it's playing out because it's actually loaded the plugins multiple times. So let's remove some. So you've got some options to load some third-party plugins in here as well. It's not as good as it is in a DAW. So if you're somebody that's going to use a lot of third-party plugins on your mastering sessions, then I'd advise that you stick to a DAW and use Ozone 8 in it. But if you're going to primarily use most of the Ozone 8 features with maybe a couple or one third-party plugin, then, you know, give it a shot in Standalone, see if your plugin will work. If not, obviously go back to the DAW. But the option's there anyway, so you can do that. So there you go. There is the standalone version of Ozone 8. What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments. Would you use it in this mode, or would you always go to your DAW to do your mastering sessions? I'd love to hear your opinion of that, because obviously iZotope saw a need for this, and it's interesting to hear what people think. So I don't currently use it standalone mode, but you know, the option's obviously there if I do choose to do it, and it has all the features, if it has all the features that are required to get my mastering sessions done. So again, let me know what you think, whether it's something you would use or if it's missing any features that you find that you couldn't live without using this mode. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. so you can keep up with all of my videos that are coming out. And don't forget to check out the previous videos in the Ozone 8 series or any other videos that I have on my channel. And feel free to come over to my website to check out the rest of my content. Hopefully it's been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in another one.